It's Thursday, January 26th, and this is now on HNN. The family of a Hawaii teen abducted and held captive seeks the community's support in court.
The legal battle continues to clear the names of the men wrongfully convicted for Dana Ireland's murder. Plus, a closer look at the Southwest travel meltdown, what's being done to prevent a repeat.
And a first alert weather update, rain and thunderstorms could be in store for parts of the state today. These stories and more coming up on This Is Now. Aloha mai kako. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Dylan Ancheta alongside Jonathan Sapi in the HNN Digital Center, and we begin today in a Kona courtroom.
Yeah, that's where a man suspected in a terrifying child abduction case appeared before a judge. Here's the latest details.
The man accused of abducting a 15-year-old girl and holding her captive inside a bus on his Hilo property in September appeared in court today for a competency hearing. Duncan Mahi is facing nearly a dozen charges, including kidnapping, robbery, and terroristic threatening after allegedly taking the girl from Hawaii Island's Anaiho'omalu Bay at knife point. The 52-year-old remains in jail after a judge revoked his bond. Outside the court, the victim's family and community members showed up in force to show their support. 15-year-old Michaela and her family are adamant they don't want the community to forget about her abduction. Mahi is set to return to court April 14th.
Just days after Albert Ian Schweitzer was exonerated for the rape and murder of Dana Ireland, the focus has now turned to the others convicted in the case, his brother Sean and Frank Pauline Jr., who passed away in prison in 2015. For the very latest, let's turn things over to our chief investigative reporter, Lynn Kawano.
Albert Ian Schweitzer's case was a priority because he was still locked up. Now that he's been cleared, the attention has shifted to the others.
The handcuffs were removed about 4:40 Tuesday afternoon, and Albert Ian Schweitzer was able to leave court a free man. He spent more than 2 decades in prison for the rape and murder of Dana Ireland. Now that the conviction has been overturned due to new evidence, the focus shifts to his younger brother, Sean, who was also convicted of the crime.
And looking at Sean's case, he's just as innocent as Ian and as innocent as Frank.
Frank Pauline Jr. was murdered in prison in 2015, serving time for the Ireland case. His attorney, Miles Briner, is also working to clear his name for his family.
There are 2 grown sons that are alive. I don't want to identify them. One of the reasons being is that they had to change their last name because of all the problems that occurred as they were growing up with the last name Pauline.
The motion to vacate the remaining 2 convictions will include testimony from Schweitzer's hearing, including the DNA expert, who said advanced testing on samples taken from Ireland's body, clothes, and other items at the crime scene exclude all 3 men. The evidence instead point to one person, known as unidentified male number 1.
The evidence is incredibly compelling. There are 7 DNA samples that prove that Ian Schweitzer and his brother, Sean Schweitzer, are innocent. They are all innocent.
I remember early on in the case, I said once, my son is innocent. And I'll say it again, my son is innocent. Both of my sons are innocent.
Miles Briner says he plans to file the motion to have the Pauline conviction overturned next month. I'm Lynn Kawano, Hawaii News Now.
The husband of former Hawaii resident Maya Miliete has been ordered to stand trial for murder. This comes 2 years after the Radford High School graduate went missing in Chula Vista, California. Yesterday, a judge heard evidence that her husband, Larry Miliete, had asked spellcasters to harm the mother of 3. The defense attorney argued his client can't be found guilty without a body, but the judge ruled that there is enough evidence for Miliete to go on trial.
He can tell you he loves his wife very much, and he did not kill her.
His requests of harm were documented and sent to the individual requesting their services to perform rituals to have those events come true, yes.
May Millette did not just fall off the face of the earth. She lived for and adored her children. She would not and did not leave voluntarily.
Larry's trial is set to begin in September.
A teacher in Virginia who was shot by a 6-year-old student earlier this month says administrators failed to act despite being warned 3 times that the child might have a gun. Jerika Duncan reports.
This should have never happened. It was preventable.
Attorney Diane Toscano represents shooting victim Abby Zwerner. Toscano said school personnel, quote, could not be bothered to act even after several warnings about the 6-year-old shooter. And she outlined hours of alleged inaction before the child fired at Zwerner. Around 11:15 a.m., she said Zwerner told an administrator that the student threatened to beat up another child, but the 6-year-old was not removed from the class. At 12:30 p.m., Toscano said another teacher told an administrator she'd searched the child's backpack after suspecting he had a gun, but she found no weapon and worried that he'd put the firearm in his pocket. Toscano said the administrator downplayed that possibility by replying, well, he has little pockets. Around 30 minutes later, Toscano said a third teacher told an administrator that a student claimed the suspect had showed him a gun during recess and threatened to shoot him if he told anyone. Yet again, Toscano said nothing was done. She also alleged that when another school employee asked to search the boy, he was turned down.
He was told to wait the situation out because the school day was almost over. Let that sink in.
Roughly an hour later, Toscano said the 6-year-old fired at Zwerner, who has since been discharged from the hospital and is continuing her recovery.
Abby Zwerner was shot in front of those horrified kids, and the school and community are living the nightmare. All because the school administration failed to act.
A spokesperson for the school district declined to comment on those allegations and did not respond to our request for the details of the school's protocol for reporting incidents like this one to police. Now, local authorities say they did not receive a call about a possible weapon at Rich Neck Elementary until after the shooting happened. Jerika Duncan, CBS News, New York.
Joining us now is HNN's Washington correspondent Peter Zampa. Peter, thank you for joining us here on This Is Now. First question to you for today. President Biden spoke earlier about the latest economic numbers. What were the key takeaways?
Yeah, Dylan, good to be with you. He drove about 30 minutes south to a friendly union audience in Virginia to talk about these numbers we all woke up to this morning. 2.9% growth in GDP for the last quarter of last year, which was down a little bit from the third quarter, but it's still growth, and that means it's still positive for this president. And he really told the crowd, look, this is because of my economic plan. It was a chance for him to sort of take a victory lap as the economy continues to chug along a little bit after a lot of fears spread about a potential recession. No recession yet. The president views that as positive.
Now, in addition to dealing with the latest economic numbers, President Biden has a lot on his hands with the documents and all of this latest scandals to emerge. The White House, the House Oversight Committee actually is moving to investigate the Biden administration. And you spoke with the committee chair yesterday. What did he say?
Yeah, Dylan, that's right. I sat down with Kentucky Republican James Comer for a number of minutes to really get to the heart of his priorities as he takes over this gavel in the House of Representatives on this very crucial committee. And a lot of these priorities surround the border or wasting taxpayer money. But we did talk at length about the documents and how he hopes to approach this. And it can be a bipartisan approach in his eyes. He thinks that he wants to get the archives in front of his committee to talk about how we handle these things, because he says it's a clear pattern. It's not just a Joe Biden thing. It's not just a Donald Trump thing. It's clearly a Vice President Pence thing too, and maybe others. So he wants to get to the root of this pattern and see how we can stop it, perhaps with a legislative fix. But I also pressed him, how do you make these seem less partisan in nature? Because that's unfortunately what a lot of folks are expecting from this committee. And he said, look, his job is oversight. He's going to provide it. And he also pointed to how Democrats treated the Trump administration. So I think we can expect partisanship from this committee, but he's hoping that there can be some bipartisan legislative fixes to some of these problems.
Yeah, it seems like every day we're learning of more and more classified documents being discovered somewhere here in this nation. On the topic of Biden's immigration policies, let's move to that really briefly. A group of Democrats are actually pushing back on that. What is that group calling for?
Yeah, this group wants to get rid of Title 42. And if you'll remember, Dylan, this is a Trump-era healthcare policy. During the start of COVID, we made it harder for folks to seek asylum. We made it easier for this country to turn people seeking asylum in the U.S. away at the border. And it's just kind of held on. And now it's become an immigration tool. The Biden administration did try to get rid of it, but the courts blocked it. So now that it's in place, the Biden administration is actually expanding the number of countries that fall under this Title 42 who can be turned away at the border. And so that's what this group of Democrats is saying. This is inhumane. Asylum seeking is something that this country has always allowed, and we should continue to allow it. Unclear how all of this gets resolved as this continues to be litigated in court.
Got it. And one more question for you. Looking over to the Republican side of things, the GOP is selecting a new Republican National Committee chair tomorrow. Now, with that, how much influence does former President Trump have, and even Ron DeSantis have in that?
Dylan, I think that's one of the things that folks are looking at. Is this the start of 2024 as these two expected 2024 juggernauts for president go head to head in almost a proxy battle? Because Governor Ron DeSantis came out and said he's not supporting the current RNC chair, Ronna McDaniel, who Trump picked back in 2016. Governor DeSantis is picking Harmeet Dillon. She's a conservative lawyer from California. She wants change. DeSantis says he wants change after a slew of bad elections for Republicans over the past couple of years, including the latest one in the midterms in 2022. So we'll see if this shapes up to be a Trump versus DeSantis, Dillon versus McDaniel type deal here in California this week. But either way, it'll tell us a lot about the direction of this party, if McDaniel keeps her seat or if there's a change in leadership.
Got it. HNN's Washington correspondent Peter Zampa here today on This Is Now. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good day.
All right, new today, Southwest Airlines, a big carrier here for the inter-island travel, is expecting a big earnings loss on the heels of some major trouble that we've been seeing unfold in the past months and over the last year. Joining us to talk more about that is Mike Valerio there in Los Angeles. Mike, thanks for being with us. How hard are those profits being hit there for Southwest?
Well, they're feeling it. It's a $250 million net loss. And when you think about where the airline industry was during the course of the pandemic on life support and really depending on government support, this is not what Southwest needed as it was really hoping for a comeback. It did eventually post a profit, but just for the last quarter, this $250 million loss really messed up its financial equation and has sent its stock price plummeting. So certainly lowering the expectations for investors and making them really go forward with these changes that critics say they were hesitant to make in the past.
Let's talk about those changes with all those problems we saw. What are they doing to prevent this from happening again? I know they had some tech and some staffing issues, right?
Yeah, so, we heard on the call today from Southwest Airlines when they were talking to journalists and analysts what they wanted to do to fix these problems. And they focused on a solution that they're developing with General Electric, GE, about a computer software upgrade. And we asked, well, are you going to get a whole new system when it comes to scheduling, right? It was the scheduling problems that really led to this snowballing of one flight canceled and then them not being able to regroup as effectively as the other airlines. And Southwest said, we're not throwing out the whole system because they think that it was, from their point of view, able to work on the whole, even though we had these scenes from airports across the country. They say that instead it's going to be a software upgrade rather than an entire new system. So that's what they're doing on their end in terms of the technical element. But what they're trying to do on a PR front, look, they're giving customers who are affected thousands of airline miles, 25,000 bonus points, which equates to about a $300 fare. And people who are affected by this, one of our close colleagues here, Isabel Rosales, in our newsroom, she was one of the people stranded. She said for her and for other people we've been interviewing through our reporting for the story, it's been pretty easy because they do have federal authorities when it comes to the Department of Transportation under Secretary Buttigieg saying, you need to make this right. We as an administration have to take a tougher stance when it comes to the airline industry because things have been so turbulent with it as of late.
All right, Mike, gotta ask about those feds. There's been a federal investigation launched into all that holiday meltdown we saw. What are they specifically looking at?
Yeah, we expected it over the past few weeks. It was officially launched yesterday. So they're looking broad picture, what happened, but when you go down to the acute level of what they're specifically looking at, the investigators are going to see if there were too many flights packed in for an over-ambitious schedule, and if there was any pressure from executives at Southwest to put in too many flights when they knew that perhaps there was a danger that the airline could not handle all of those flights. And if they find out that is the case, that there was this pressure mounted to put in too many flights when Southwest systems may not have been able to handle them under the worst conditions, that could amount to deceptive trade practices, which could level fines and other penalties against the airline. So bottom line, they're trying to see if Southwest knew that this could have been a terrible situation, or knew that, they were walking on thin ice here with the technology and the infrastructure that they had available to them.
All right, Mike Valerio with that very well done travel update regarding Southwest for us. Thanks, Mike.
All right, thank you for that update on Southwest. Now let's take you live outside. This is a look out over beautiful Honolulu. It is actually a cool 75 degrees today, high of 76 with a low of 68. It is beautiful here, but in other parts of the state, it could be a different story. Let's check in now with our Guy Hoggy for our first alert weather.
Weather's going to be changing. We got the breezy trade-ins already. That'll help limit the rainfall accumulation from the rain that's still hovering around Hawaii Island and around Maui County. And you can see the winds are going to get stronger as we head into the weekend. And that will be good, too, because that will help move the increasing showers that we are expecting over the weekend. So for the Kona side, it's going to be cloudy today, but should be fairly dry. And then they'll see some more showers from that moisture lingering around through the weekend. Remember, some of this could be heavy. We could even get some isolated thunderstorms through the weekend for the Hilo side as well. And then drier conditions are going to take over the early part of next week. Now for us, this is what, for Kauai, we'll see drier conditions today and tomorrow. Going to be beautiful. And now Maui, on the other hand, they're still dealing with that old front, and then that new front brings in showers pretty much statewide. Saturday and Sunday look cloudy and squishy, pretty much statewide.
A 3-year-old monk seal has died after apparently being attacked by a shark off Kauai. Known as RM-28, the female seal was flown to the Keikaiola Hospital on Hawaii Island for treatment, but she did not survive. NOAA says multiple reports from concerned residents allowed them to quickly respond and locate the seal. The latest winter storm to hit the U.S. is now dumping several inches of snow in New England, and that's after already leaving behind a trail of destruction in Texas and the Southeast. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez has more.
More snow here in Concord, New Hampshire overnight, and this after another winter storm had blown through here earlier this week. Over the last several hours, this has switched over to rain. Now, overnight, powerful wind and rain slammed into New Jersey, knocking down trees, and some 8 million people across northern New England are still under winter weather alerts. Now, it was a very messy day on the roads yesterday, treacherous travel in many parts of the country, including in Detroit, where a tractor trailer lost control and crashed on the interstate. Down south, parts of Alabama were flooded, and this morning, tens of thousands of people in Arkansas are still without power. Now, in Texas, damage is still being assessed after what the National Weather Service says was an EF3 tornado slammed into the area outside Houston, packing winds of up to 140 miles an hour. There have been at least 158 tornado reports this month alone, making it the most active January on record. Still, it's been a highly unusual winter in other parts of the country as well for a different reason. In New York City, for example, there has been no measurable snowfall in 11 months, and that is almost a record. Clearly, a very different story, though, here in New Hampshire. Back to you.
All right. That looked like a mess, that's for sure. Let's see what else the internet is talking about today. So, something really big in the sky is about to happen in just hours, so listen up. You might not be able to see it, though. Astronomers say asteroid 2023 BU will zoom 2,200 miles above the tip of South America. That's going to happen at 2:30 Hawaii time. That's one of the closest encounters ever recorded. There's no chance of this hitting the planet, though, so no deep impact scenario going to unfold there. The asteroid is about 28 feet in diameter, which is about the size of a delivery truck.
Still pretty big, if you ask me. Jonathan, are you a Squid Games fan?
I did not see it. It creeped me out just watching the promo.
I didn't see it either. However, as we know, it was a major hit. But unfortunately, 3 people had to get medical treatment while filming a reality show based on Squid Games. Terrifying stuff. It happened in the United Kingdom. It's unclear exactly what happened. However, the British press previously referred to the conditions on set as a war zone, and what's likely to blame is the below freezing temperatures. Now, Netflix admits the very cold temperatures were there in place, but says participants were prepared for that, and they also did have medics on set. So in terms of what exactly happened, again, it's unclear, but ultimately, harsh conditions. Real life Squid Games, no thank you. Hard pass on that.
Well, something people can't get enough of is the Eddies still. So many stories out there and so many good pictures and video. Keep them coming to us, too. We still have a submission page on our digital platforms if you haven't had time to upload it yet. But our Kyle Chinen got a chance to catch up with the big winner, and that's today's Good News Now.
Just a few beaches over, North Shore native and active lifeguard Luke Shepherdson etched his name into the history books, beating out some of the world's best big wave surfers to win the Eddy, a memory he will never forget. What are these last couple days, what have they been like for you?
It's like a tornado hit me.
Shepherdson has felt a wave of congratulations and aloha since winning one of the world's most revered surf contests. The 27-year-old using his lunch breaks to compete at Waimea Bay, a dream he's had all of his life.
When I grabbed the jersey for my first heat, I started tearing up, crying. I was like, I'm really surfing an Eddie Aikau contest. It's like been one of the hugest dreams of mine.
And he was almost late for work that morning.
I jumped out of the car and grabbed my fins and told my girlfriend to drive, and then I ran to work, and then took her about a half hour to make it from Foodland to Waimea.
Immediately after winning the Eddy, the parallels between Shepherdson and the contest's namesake became apparent. Shepherdson, an active city and county lifeguard, and Eddie Aikau, the North Shore's first lifeguard, an example that Luke tries to emulate every time he clocks in for work.
Doing so many selfless acts to help other people around him, and then his love for the ocean, that's what I really admire about him, and it's what I try to do myself.
And for his family, watching him achieve his childhood dream brought back fond memories of long days on the North Shore.
So happy for him because he's wanted this since he was a little kid. Us going out to the beach and him wanting to stay past dark.
And you might think after winning that big of a contest, the celebration would also be gigantic. But for Luke,
they went home, made some pizza, and ate pizza and went to sleep.
Now don't expect to see Luke's name in any other lineups anytime soon. He says the only other contest he'll be entering is next year's Eddy. Reporting from Rock Piles, Kyle Chinen, Hawaii News Now.
Thank you so much, Kyle. That does it for us on today's edition of This Is Now. Have a great day, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow.